Hello and welcome to a new video. In today's video I have been kindly sent a few items to show for you today from the company Meeden. One of the items is this acrylic paint set that includes 100 paint tubes. Most of them are different colours, different tones of colours, but there are 3 titanium whites and 2 zinc whites in this set as well, so it is kind of like not entirely 100 colours, but certainly there are 100 tubes, and there are quite a lot, as you can see. And it's quite a nice range of colours as well. As always, I have the issue of I personally don't think there are enough purples. They also sent me this 4-pack of 8x10 wooden canvas boards. I've been really looking forward to trying these out. I've never used a wooden canvas board before, I don't think. They've always just been like a typical canvas board. It looks really nice quality and it is the perfect size for what I am planning to do in today's video. But as well as both of these items, they also sent me another thing which I will show you right now. So yes, over here we've got my desk. This set of drawers here is the other item that they sent me. I wish I'd shown you before what my desk looked like, but unfortunately I was too eager to just put it up, so I didn't really think that part through. But they're a really nice set of drawers. It came with both of them because this is 2 separate sections, and they're just little drawers to keep your things organised. And this is way more organised than it was before, so it's really handy because it's nice and neatly tucked away, and I can just put all of my different pens in there, and it's incredibly handy. I did initially think when they sent it to me that it was like that these were removable, but unfortunately these are stuck in, so like you can't put papers or anything in there. This is like specifically for like pens and tools that will fit in there. I'm sure you could fit small paper in there, but I tried to remove it, so it has got a little bit of personal alteration, but it wouldn't really come out so easily, which I guess is a good thing. It means it's very sturdy, but yeah, you kind of can't put paper in there, which is a shame. I think they would have been perfect for storing paper because I have a lot of paper. But yeah, it's just really cute because I went for like a white vibe when it came for my setup. It's just nice to bring in some more like natural wood colour, which is something that I'd like to do in the future. Maybe get like an actual wooden desk at some point. So yeah, I really like how that looks, and it's really, really lovely. So I'm really grateful that they sent me that. But let's get back to the video. Okay, so to start off, because these are wooden canvases, I wanted to prime them before I got into doing literally anything else with them. For what I want to do in this video, I made these characters actually specifically for this video. They are knight characters, and I wanted to do some kind of painting of them. I've recently been reading this book series. It's the Saint of Steel series, and it's got like these romance covers on it, and I thought it would be really cute to do like sort of a romance cover vibe, and I wanted to use these characters because I've been in a big knight mood recently. So I planned them out already, but I am now properly like putting down the composition for these pieces, as you can see here. So I'm just roughly sketching them out on this sketchbook page because it doesn't need to be anything special. It's just to help me have a guideline kind of thing. So what I wanted to do is, because they are the same 2 characters in both pieces, I wanted them to have one of them being in armour and the other one being out of armour. And I just thought it would make a nice contrast, because initially I was just thinking of doing a woman, but I was like, I'm kind of tired of like, I love these things, but always like, I feel like it's more common for the man to be in armour and the woman not to be, in like a kind of damsel in distress kind of vibe. That's why I wanted to do one with the dude out of armour as well. His name is Russell and her name is Eliza. And then I also wanted to give them like flowers kind of specific to each character. So he's got, hang on, I can't remember what they're called. His flowers are called Nasturtium Empress or Nasturtium Empress. I can't remember exactly. I don't know how you say it. They're like big green leaved and they kind of look like lily pad vibes. That's what they give me at least. With these beautiful red flowers that are red to orange gradient. Not for any particular reason, I just felt like it suited each character better. And she has bluebells and forget-me-nots. For her planning here, this is when I decided that I wanted to give her both flowers, because initially it was just forget-me-nots, but I wasn't liking how the composition for the flowers in this little sketch was looking, so that's why I decided to kind of add both. Instead of getting this like star thing behind them, they have a like an explosion star burst, just to make it a little more different from the first picture. So after doing that, I wanted to do some like colour schemes because I had coloured them in my book before. He was gold and she was blue, but that wasn't actually what I wanted their official colours to be. That was just what I did at the moment for some reason. So I wanted to get a better idea of what the colour for each of these pieces would be. And I'm really glad I did that because it helped so much when it came to actually painting them. Like, it's not a neat thumbnail colouring at all, which is kind of the point. It made it a lot easier to do and it helped me just give a general vibe that I wanted. And yeah, it was incredibly helpful. So after doing that, it is now time to sketch the pieces onto the canvas properly. I was pretty nervous about this because I'd drawn them already in my book, so I knew I could do it, but I was worried about actually having it look the same and keeping the same feeling and vibes from the book on the canvas board, and I struggled with it so much. I had to just keep erasing, redoing things, and just constantly working it again, to the point where this got incredibly messy, because something about how the pencil sits on the paint means that it is incredibly easy to smudge. And then because I kept doing things wrong, I was obviously putting down these really, really thick patches of graphite pencil. So this got so messy, and my desk is just covered in smudge prints and fingerprints. But I was really happy with how it turned out. It got all over my hands. It was such a mess, and I had to do like a proper clean up. Even though I was about to do it again for the second canvas board, I just couldn't stand how dirty it was. I found this one easier to do than the first one, but I did still have some issues, so it did ultimately get messy again. I think I accidentally zoomed in on this one more than I had in the plan sketch, so it is closer to the faces of these characters, so maybe that's also why it was a bit easier. As for the characters themselves, I haven't really got any story for them. I just kind of wanted to make something up. Or make these characters up, and honestly I kind of couldn't be bothered to come up with a story for them. Maybe I will one day, but as of right now they are just they just exist. They were just fun for me to draw. so that is both of the canvases now ready, and I have to clean my desk once again. But now, because the graphite is a problem, I wanted to seal them in by colouring the entire canvas in this nice pink. This also helps because then I have an underpainting of pink, which will help give like a sort of tone to the piece, and if any gaps show through, it will be a nice pink that shows through instead. Now I am ready to paint. I am setting everything up, getting all my paints laid out so I can easily see all the tubes available. I also have this canvas, or this drawing board, I can't remember what it's called exactly, that I bought ages ago. This is not a Meeden product, but they do actually provide similar canvases on their stores, so you can probably go find it there. Links to everything featured in this video will be in the description as well, so you can easily check out their store there. I'm using a plate as my paint palette because my ones are kind of gross and I just needed a bigger palette to work on for this, and I just wanted to start by blocking most of everything in. I didn't want to get too bogged down by details initially. I do try and add like a little bit of shading in these first layers, but for the most part I'm just being really loose with it because I can just add layers as I need. And this is when I realized that, because I had the worry that these tubes weren't going to hold that much paint and that I was going to run out really quickly, but there's actually a lot of paint in these tubes, and so I actually put too much on my plate initially because I'm really bad at judging how much paint to use. But yeah, that was a really pleasant surprise that there's actually quite a lot of paint here, and that just makes using it a lot easier because I don't feel like I have to be as stingy with it. As you can see, I am trying to add some lighting initially because I wanted it to be there as a guideline for when I add more detail later. But for the most part, the armour changes a lot because I am not used to painting armour, and I probably should have gotten a proper reference picture of armour, but I was just like making it up and trying to be aware of where colours would be and reflections and all of that. So unfortunately it does initially start off very muddy because I am also, I guess, a bit lazy because I don't let my canvas dry before adding paint, and I don't always clean my brush, which is really handy in keeping things feeling cohesive in that there is like bits of colour in everything, and for the most part it works out and I really like how it looks. But then you do run into muddy sections where the paint just blends into this horrible mess, and I get that a lot with his armour, so I fix it eventually, but unfortunately it's got to get worse before I get to that stage. And then colouring her in, she was incredibly easy. I just put down a layer of skin colour for her, and then I just went in adding shadows and stuff. I am way more comfortable colouring in people than I am armour, so yeah, she was just a really nice refresher after having painted the armour to this point. I was unfortunately doing what I said I was trying not to do and getting bogged down with the details, so I did try to take a step back from focusing on her skin and add some of the other colours in. So I put down a base colour for her clothes, and then I get distracted again. This painting just felt like I was constantly getting distracted by different points of it because I go back into adding all the details on her skin, which would be a lot easier if I had added the hair because it would have balanced everything out. But I think I was worried. I was like, if I add the hair in, that's like another thing that I'll have to avoid when adding the details on her skin. So then I thought if I do all the skin first, then I can add the hair over it. Does that make sense? Because like I don't have to be as neat then in that case. But because of that, I was really struggling with the like balance on her face and just changing things so much, as you can see, and just slowly getting darker and darker, which is where I was starting to feel better about it, because the more dark I added, the more balanced, I guess, it was looking. One of my biggest struggles with this piece was getting the lighting right, because I don't really do that much with lighting in any of my art, I don't think. I do pretty basic shadows and highlights and stuff, so that is something I really struggled with, and I do eventually get to a point with this piece where I like the lighting, but for a very long time I don't. And again, that is mostly on his armor. Like that yellow light is just, it's too much. I don't like it at all, because maybe you saw it when I was doing my planning colour. I wanted there to be a sort of light source behind them that would then like shine through the gap between them a little bit, and that's what I'm trying to show with the lighting, and I was not having a good time with it. Really, that is something that I need to practice more of, but I don't know. We'll see if I can be bothered. So one thing I found really weird about these paints, and I'll be honest, I haven't used actual acrylic paints in quite a while. I have mostly used acrylic pens and markers recently, but I was surprised at how dry it all felt. Part of me wonders if that is to do with the wood canvas board, but then I was also noticing that on my palette that these paints were drying really quickly, and I would have to mix water in with them a lot. So I was having the issue of the paint getting very clumpy. I was just struggling to make everything look neat because of that. And honestly, these paints were kind of strange in that there were a couple times where I had to double check that they weren't like gouache, like acrylic gouache or something, because the way they would react felt like gouache at times, where even once they had like dried on my palette, like to the point where they were bone dry, they could be reactivated again by water. But these are just acrylics. I double checked, I triple checked. It doesn't say anywhere that they're anything but acrylic, so I don't know, maybe there's just something about them, how they were made, that is different to what I'm used to. But typically I'm used to acrylics staying wet longer. But yeah, if I added water, this all worked out fine, except for on some of the colours that were thinner, because this set does have a variety of like opaqueness within each paint, which is actually listed on the bottom of the box. It tells you for each colour how opaque you can expect it to be. So for the ones that were very translucent, it was a little bit of an issue, but I think I made it work for the most part. It's just there are a couple points where it is an issue, but I fix it by just putting several layers down. So at this point I was feeling a little stumped because I hated how his armour was looking, so I decided to add more of the background elements. So I'm adding the leaves in first, and I wanted to give like a nice range of bluey greens to try and imply some depth. And then I went in with the red, and I was trying to put a little bit on his armour every now and then to imply reflections, which did not look good at all, and it just made it all look even more muddy, because how he looks does not look at all similar to how she looks. Like, it doesn't look like they're the same art style, which was bugging me so much. I just finished adding in these background elements while I was thinking like what I was going to do with the piece, and I actually took a break over the weekend to think about it properly, because this piece actually, it took quite a while because I was struggling with it and I was fighting the British lighting. So the lighting in this video goes all over the place. Yeah, so because I took a break, I then was like, you know what, I'm going to have to just redo most of his armor, and I am so glad I did. It made me feel so much better, and I tried to make it more simple rather than what I was initially going for, which I think was just a little too complicated. I just went really basic, and I thought, if it doesn't matter if it doesn't look as shiny as armor should be or as reflective, just as long as it fits the piece, I'll be happy. So I went with some calmer colours, I want to say. Like, they're not pastel, but they are more pastel than what he was looking like, and I really love it. I went for like purples and blues, and I changed the lighting to this kind of coral pink tone, which looks way softer, and I feel actually looks more like lighting now, so I was very happy about that. And then I just added some more interesting things into like the darker patches on his armor. So I left the purple that I had initially used and then added a dark blue, and it gives it like this nice gradient within the gaps. Whether or not it makes sense, I have no idea, but the point is that I like how it looks, and that's what I find important, you know? Now I wanted to go in and do some more to her hair because it was very patchy, because some of those colours were very thin. So the purple from the pink from the underlayer was showing through a lot. But I did actually kind of like how that was looking. So there are a couple places where I wanted to keep the purple vibes of her hair, which I was hoping would make it look like it looked like that because light was showing through, and I think that comes through, I think that comes across. If it doesn't, I just think it looks kind of pretty, so I don't really mind. And then on the top of her head I added a bit of that coral pink, which I wasn't sure about, but I think it does work. And because I didn't go too crazy with it and I left it as just like the edges, I think it looks fine. And then I added a little bit more darkness to her skin to imply stronger shadows, because she was looking very flat, because like I said, I really struggle with lighting in these pieces. And there was another thing I noticed about this paint actually that had me thinking about gouache again, is every colour I put down dried darker than when it was wet, which I feel like I don't remember that happening with acrylics I've used in the past. I feel like they almost always dry the same colour, but for these they were drying a lot darker, and that was throwing me off because that is very similar to how like gouache works. But yeah, I think for the most part it still worked out fine. It just threw me off a little bit. So I'm also adding another layer to all of the leaves because they are also incredibly patchy, and I really like how this looks, but it does mean they look very, very flat. But I don't think that's that big of an issue. I think it's actually kind of nice to have them being more simple compared to the other elements, because I really didn't want all the pieces clashing on this picture. I really liked the blue background, but because I had the glowing effect on the people, I felt the background looked very flat in comparison, and I wanted to try and keep the idea that this star was glowing. So I did a sort of gradient on the background where it's going from a pink to blue, so it's a nice pink, purple, blue gradient. I'm very happy that I did that because it looks so much nicer, and I think it does convey a glowing effect. And for the most part, I don't think it also clashes with anything, which is another thing I was worried about because I am kind of sticking to a lot of the same colours, but I think I managed to make it work where they don't clash. So yeah, I was really happy that I decided to do that for the background. Now that the background is mostly done, I wanted to go in and add a couple more foreground details, specifically her hair, because I was looking forward to so much adding just a few individual strands, and I think it looked so nice because at that point everything was looking kind of too solid, like too within its shape, and adding these like little flyaways just helped make it look a lot nicer. And I did the same thing with some highlights in her hair, which then prompted me to add some actual highlights to her skin as well. I then wanted to add a bit more detail to the flowers because you could probably tell I was struggling to paint them a lot. For whatever reason, I just could not paint these flowers, so I keep adding a little bit to them more and more. And the same with the leaves, I wanted to add a bit of detail to them. I wanted to try and make it look like they were also getting some sort of glow from the star. So I added this yellow, but I didn't like how stark it looked. So I was going to just cover it completely again and just leave them flat. But when I added the green that I had used as their base colour, it blended and I was like, maybe this will work. And I just did a sort of lazy gradient thing again that I actually really like on the leaves. I think it adds a little bit of detail without being too much. Then I was just going in and adding a few more finishing touches just to try and make things stand out a bit on both his armour and on her. And yeah, I was just really liking how it was looking at this point because I had been stressing about it so much. And all these little finishing touches were things that I'd been looking forward to for so long, because I think they make everything look a lot nicer. So having that restraint and not adding them as soon as I wanted to was pretty tricky, but it was worth it in the end. And I added a couple more pieces of red to try and make the flowers not look so random. So they're kind of like floating petals, I guess, even though they're not the same size as the flower petals, so you can decide what they are. So the last thing I was really looking forward to adding was these like sparkle dots. And this paintbrush that I've been using throughout this entire video, this tiny one, is actually a nail art brush to help me get all the small details. And it comes with this little, like, would it be called, is it a ball stylus or something, that's on the other end of a paintbrush, or of this nail brush, and it was perfect for adding all of these like particle effect things. Really hard to rein in the control and not just go crazy with that, so I tried to control myself, but there might be maybe too many. And then I wanted to paint the edges of this board because initially I was planning on leaving them just this plain wood. I thought it would look really nice, but there were a couple places where the paint went over the edge that I didn't like, and I also thought it just kind of looks unfinished, so I want to paint it. So I am also giving this a layer of white to help me put this next layer of yellow on. One, so that the yellow doesn't just soak straight into the wood, but also so that it is more vibrant because it has the white background. I went with this colour, I felt like it would look really nice with the picture itself. So I wanted to add some other details to the edge of the board, so I'm turning my little easel thing here around to help me get that, because I wanted to add this like darker pink to the edge in a line, and it helps me keep a straight-ish line. Unfortunately, it is a bit wonky at the end, but I wanted to add these sort of like sparkle diamond designs all along the edge. But as soon as I did the first one, I was like, wow, that was incredibly tedious. I don't want to do that all the way along. I honestly can't be bothered. So I instead just put one at each corner, which I think still looks really nice, and it's just not as distracting, I suppose. And yeah, I really like how it looks, but I think I was slanting slightly when I was adding the line, because by the time I get to the end where the line is supposed to join up with the first line, it is a lot lower. So it's a little messy, but thankfully it's just the border, and I doubt anyone's really going to be looking at the border, so oh well. It is what it is. That is it for this one. It took a lot longer than I thought it would. It took like over a week to do, I think. Maybe because I was stressing about it a lot and I wanted it to be like perfect. And I wouldn't say it's perfect by any means. There are things about it that I would maybe change, but for the most part, I am incredibly happy with how it looks. I really like how it turned out. I'm not sure if it gives the romance novel vibe that I was going for. As long as I like it, who really cares? As for the second one, this one had taken a lot out of me, so I was kind of dreading doing the second one, but I had started it, so I wanted to finish it. I wanted to have the set done because I'd shown you it in the book. I did start it. I did kind of basically do it. I'm showing you a very condensed version of it because for the most part I painted this one in my free time, but I somehow managed to get this one done in like 2 days, which I was really surprised by. I can only assume it's because I had figured out from the first one how I wanted this one to be, but I did also leave this one a lot simpler, so perhaps that is it as well. I don't like this one as much as the first one, and that also kind of hindered how much effort I wanted to put into it. But yeah, I just wanted to show you some of it. Again, obviously I haven't shown you all of it like I did with the first one because I was struggling with my motivation for it. I'm not gonna lie. So I did the painting. I might change things at some point, like I'm not too fond of how his face has turned out, and it's definitely way less detailed than the first one. I haven't bothered putting a border on yet. I probably will at some point, but I like only just finished this, so I'm just not at that point yet. I think together they look quite nice. I think they look like they could be part of a set of a series. Obviously I left the background more flat on this one, and I haven't finished like rendering the armor on her hands and stuff. And then I kind of got lazy in terms of covering up some of the background pieces. Like I left this pink showing through, but then I really liked it, so I actually added a little bit more on to keep it more deliberate, and I added some to his face as well. Honestly, I was really burnt out at this point because I haven't done paintings like this in a while, and these felt like pretty big projects compared to what I usually do. So yeah, this was the best that I could do. But I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. Despite all of my little nagging complaints about them, I'm very happy with them. The paints themselves were perfect in that they covered a ton of colours, and some of them were really nice. But again, my biggest issue was how quickly they dried, and that caused clumping. But then, like, how weirdly they reactivated. So, like, normally when I use a palette, I can leave it covered in the paint and just put more paint on top of it, because as long as the paint beneath it is dry, it shouldn't affect the new paint I put on it. But with these, I had to keep cleaning my palette each time I'd let it dry out even a little bit, otherwise they would muddy up any new paints that I put on, and I'm just not used to that. I don't know if it's just because I've not used paints like this before. Like, it could be that I am just not as experienced with using acrylic paints, but that's what stood out to me the most. But yeah, this was incredibly fun to do. I hope you enjoyed watching the process for them, and I want to say a big thank you to Meeden for sending me these products to try out for you in this video. Also, we actually recently hit 100k here on YouTube, which is incredible. I cannot believe there are that many of you here. I want to say a quick thank you now, but also I am working on a proper thank you video for that. I just can't guarantee when it will be out, but just know that there is one coming, okay? And then lastly, I want to say a massive thank you to my patrons: Dispe, Grimclow, The Waffle of Life, Non-Toxic, Saint Nick's, LP, Kira May, Kay, Joanna, Mila, Pretty Rotten, R.A. Foxy, Joanna Snake Moon, Humble Frogs, Local Fishkeeper, Mould Ghoul, Farrarware, Sun Arts, Molly Marula, Scout Radley, Sammy Bear 127, Kenzania, Arrow, Charlie, Malorus, Coda, Cindy King, Art by Lavender, Angela's Weird Tales, Rainbow Tea, Breaded Nuggets, Learns, Human Eye, The Moss Bug, Nox, Catbird House, The Tormented Shadow, Sweet and Hopeless, Pocket, Jordan's Tiny Planet, The Coffee Rain, Black Jackal Art, Leela Loves You, Faith, A. Wendu, Ronnie, Olivia Gadbor, Heather F, Cheris Needham, Rotting Lettuce, Binixery, Cyrus Orion, Mottled Pixel, Malbon Designs, Gamut Girl, Catberry Studio, Solar Tortoise, Auden, Red S Lily, Haley, Sienna G, Lady Ratbird, Fia, Greenfinch G Illustration, Lynn, Cody, Kaleidoscope Arm, Cloud, Cleofix, Redders, Ziutka, Beetle Ghost, Melisandra Sinclair, Bria Washington, Hurrier, June, Dakota Garcia, Manon, Lily Likes Art, Rona, Levi, Tink, Daniel McGuinness, Janine, Dios Live, K2, Flossie, Stegosaurus, Yoinks, Soundly Manners, Stoyan, Bleety, Spooky Chloe, Starry Fern, Kiki, Nuclear Nail Bomb, Brianna, P. Wright Stuff, Raig Norway, JGP, Spaceman Theo, Slurmp, Nosebridge, Cherry, In the Clouds, Quill, Nowil, Saturn, Saturn'sWar.jpg, Bunny B, Samara, One Joltaire, Lee H, Jen Be Burning, Fenray, Cinderus, Mon, I Like Tea and Pokemon, Kino K, Bland Polecat, Destiny, Kaya D, Jamie, Riggs M23, Lolly, Kendall Collins, and Mel Vogel. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and I should have another video out for you all soon, so I will see you then.